All right, welcome back, and thank you for keeping it daybreak this morning. We always invite your feedback and opinion on the conversation that we're having on the show. So at Daybreak Citizen TV is where you can be able to share with us your thoughts at Citizen TV Kenya, and at Safin_Acheng. We will share some of your sentiments with my panel this particular morning. And already in studio, I have with me Mheshimiwa Robert Mbui, the Member of Parliament for Kadhiani constituency all the way from Machakos. Thank you, Mheshimiwa, for creating time. We also have with us John Nene, the Secretary General for Labour Party of Kenya. We appreciate your time. And we're also expecting to join us Suba Churchill, the Executive Director, National Civil Society Centre, and Kennedy Ondiek, UDA Coordinator for the South Nyanza region. But either way, gentlemen, we begin this conversation straight away, just looking at the state of the nation and a lot that has been shaping concerns, debates, conversations in our country this morning. But of course, just out of curiosity, Mheshimiwa Mbui, tomorrow, the National Assembly begins its sitting after the recess. Probably what is your expectation? You will remember the last time members of Parliament had a sit down, a lot really happened. And this time around, I believe as members of Parliament, you will be looking at things with the different lenses based on even the times that we are living in as a country. So what would be some of the expectations as Parliament resumes business tomorrow?
Yeah, thank you, Safin. First, I think as we resume office, we hope that Parliament has already been renovated, because by the time we were going by the time we were going on recess, we were unceremoniously bundled out of the house by the Gen Z movement. Obviously, because of the pain they felt when members of Parliament passed that infamous 2024 finance bill, which unfortunately, after fighting so hard for it to pass in the House, when we were telling them that it wasn't a good idea, the President himself ended up throwing it and threw them all under the bus, because it was a shame to see members of Parliament who had insisted on passing the bill being the ones that are cheering the President on when he decided to, to remove the bill, to withdraw it. But so I hope that the House is properly restored for business. We are going into the House, and one of the first things that we'll be dealing with, because this issue of the Gen Zs is still at the forefront of everything in the country and all politics. And the first thing I think we'll be doing is vetting these nominees that the President has given out. And we've already received a warning. Just like when we were, discussing, debating on the finance bill, all of us got messages from our constituents and from the young, youthful generation in Kenya, and they were telling us, do not support this. We've already started receiving those kind of sentiments. Telling
on the cabinet list?
Yes, telling us that, we were very clear that we don't want people to be recycled. When the President dismissed the cabinet, then it meant that he had showed no confidence in any of them. So by giving a list that has still the same individuals, some of whom, by the way, are part of the reason why there were these revolts by the youth. The Honorable Professor Kindiki, who was CS Interior, and is proposed to go back to the same docket, was in office when our youth were killed like rabbits in the streets. Over 40 of them were killed just in the recent past. And these people are unarmed. These are people who are walking around with phones, a bottle of water to wash their faces when they get tear gassed, the flag of the Republic of Kenya. And over 40 of them were killed, innocent souls. The only thing they did was to follow the Constitution of Kenya 2010 that says you can demonstrate, you can picket, you can present petitions. They came to Parliament to present a petition. They were killed like wild animals. And the person overseeing that docket comes back again to the same docket. I mean, that's an insult on.
All right.
It's an insult on the youth of Kenya. So basically, there's going to be a lot of things. I believe that the members of Parliament will now start debating with reason. and with logic.
All right.
Not the way we were before we went on recess.
It will not be business as usual.
Yes.
Of course, you have already started just weighing in on this list of cabinet that President William Ruto unveiled. It's just part of the cabinet. And of course, a lot has been said with regards to some of the people who've made it to that list. But of course, you know, also to weigh in on this, John, looking at how things have been happening in our country, sort of like the strong voice of Mwananchi is coming out very strongly. What would be your probably advice to our leaders who will be resuming business tomorrow on how now going forward they should be visualizing some of the decisions that they are making? And, you know, with regards to just considering right now that Mwananchi are not taking things lightly anymore. They want things to be done their way or no other way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Safin. We are at a very critical moment as a country right now, and we are bringing the public voice so strongly. And if you look at the way things started, we were optimistic that at least we have started a serious conversation as a nation on service to the people. Because we've seen governments in place that come in and lie to the people, come with beautiful manifestos, come up with a roadmap. Immediately they get into the office, they create structures to start misappropriating public funds and bring up useless way of governance. And now the Gen Zs came out and we started asking critical questions. But I think we started like, we moved like 3 steps forward, and now we are back to step 1. Because it seems that the president is not reading the mood of the people. Because, you know, when the Gen Zs went to the street the first time, the president came out hungry and he threatened the people. Did it work for him? No, it didn't work. Because the issues that young people are bringing up in the public. It's not about, there is no some section of human beings in this country called Gen Zs. The issues they are bringing are issues of national interest. You've had interviews here and you've seen that even people who are not Gen Zs are supporting the issues that are being raised on this platform. So we are feeling that we are not progressing, because the president is still standing in the same position he was before. He came out, actually the way he's handling this issue, you know, when Sudan protest started, Sudan went to nationless, not because of the issues that people are raising, but because of the way the government handled that they responded to the revolt. These issues are not to be responded by threat and force. They're supposed to be responded to in a very sober way. And the president should get very good people to advise him on how to handle this issue step by step. But you can see that he's listening so much to his UDA friends. Because even before the president went public and to say that he's going to use force and to throw these Gen Zs out, there were already tweets from some of his UDA members of parliament, some of these crazy people like Didmas Baraza. They were saying some stuff, and now we realize that is also the opinion of the president. So this is not an issue that should be handled with force and threats. It should be handled with soberness. So we think that it's not moving anywhere, and we want to just advise this regime that these opinions that are being brought up are issues of public interest. Right. They are not issues that are designated to some group of people that is now branding as criminals. This faceless, formless is creating an amorphous group.
All right.
This is a public interest issues that we are saying we need a new way of governance. We want our public resources to bring value and quality of life to our people.
All right.
Yeah.
I want us to just listen into something that the head of state, let's begin from when he, unveiled his very first list of the cabinet, and look at, even what informed this particular list and what he is trying to do from what he explained. Let's listen into what the head of state said on the day that he had unveiled the first list of the new cabinet.
I nominate the following first batch of 11 individuals for consideration and approval by the National Assembly for appointment as cabinet secretaries and Attorney General. Ministry of Interior and National Administration, Professor Kithure Kindiki. Ministry of Health, Dr. Deborah Mulongo Baraza. Ministry of Lands, Public Works, Housing, and Urban Development, Alice Wahome. Ministry of Education, Julius Migosi Ogamba. Ministry of Defense, Aden Bare Duale. Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, Dr. Andrew Mwihia Karanja. Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, Roslinda Soipan Tuya. Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, Eric Muridhi Muga. Ministry of Roads and Transport, Davis Chircher. Ministry of Information, Communication and Digital Economy, Dr. Margaret Nyambura Ndungu. Attorney General, Rebecca Miano.
All right, so that is President William Ruto. That list has elicited conversations across the country. Some, of course, questioning the return of some of the cabinet secretaries who served in the previous cabinet that was dissolved on grounds and justifications that there were some of the concerns that some people had termed failure by the government. And of course, we also have the new faces on that particular list, but some questioning the suitability of some cabinet secretaries nominees on being in charge of some dockets within a government. And I have my panel this morning just to discuss and weigh in on President William Ruto's cabinet. So just to run you through, of course, having joined us now, we have in studio Kennedy Ondiek, the UDA coordinator for South Nyanza region. We appreciate your time. And also having joined us is Suba Churchill, the executive director, National Civil Society Center. And of course, we had already in studio Mheshimiwa Robert Mbui, the member of parliament for Kadhiani constituency in Machakos, and John Nene, the Secretary General, Labour Party of Kenya. Gentlemen, once again, karibu, and thank you for creating time. So you've had that list that the head of state has, actually it's something that like I said, has really elicited debate, but I would like to hear your quick thoughts on, the reason why we went back to this particular point was the government trying to get it right based on the grievances that the Gen Zs had raised. I'll start with you, John. Having listened to, the first part of the list that the head of state has unveiled, do you get a sense of us moving towards the direction that the Gen Zs had so passionately advocated for us to move in as a country?
First of all, even in coming up with the list, the president promised that he will have a multi-sectoral discussion on the issues that have been raised by the Gen Zs. I think that would have been the first step, so that we would suggest what we want and what people want in going forward with the thing. But if you look at the list that has been floated, some of these people are from the former regime, and they are part of the reason why we were saying the cabinet should be out. Initially, the Gen Zs were not advocating for complete bringing down the whole of the cabinet. They were not doing that. They were suggesting that those who have been tainted with the corruption issues and incompetence be removed from the cabinet. And when the president brought down the list, it brought some confidence in the people that he is serious about what he's doing. He wants to just start from a new slate. But then when he goes back and he brings these people back without following these steps that we were expecting, like dialogue, multisectoral, opinion of the public, because public opinion has always been alluded to by the regimes before. They pretend that there is a public opinion, but it's never there. We wanted to give our opinion to this thing. The public is now, communication systems are available, the X space is there. He would have taken opinion, and even we would have floated some names of competent people to come to the cabinet. So we don't know where. He just sat somewhere in his room, maybe with some of his advisors, and he came up with this list. You know, just like Mheshimiwa said, Kithure Kindiki is there. Adan Duale, who tweeted the first time that he declared state of emergency, you know, when people first went to the street. So this is sending a very bad message to what is going on. It's so like,
do you welcome the list?
No.
You don't welcome the list?
I don't.
All right, suggesting that the head of state should have waited to gather public opinion. But Mheshimiwa, what do you think? What are your concerns? Or are you comfortable that the government is at par with regards to getting it right? Because that was actually what the country was expecting with this new cabinet.
Yeah, thank you. The thing is that the president himself dismissed the whole cabinet. And by virtue of the fact that he dismissed the whole cabinet, it meant that he himself was also convinced that the cabinet was a failure. Incidentally, the president has the option of reshuffling, and he could also have dismissed part of the cabinet. He made that decision himself and gazetted it, that he's dismissed everybody. So basically, when he returns people to the same dockets, it just shows that there is serious confusion in that regard, because you can dismiss people, kick them out of office, and a week later, 2 weeks later, you return the same people to the same offices. I mean, that doesn't give confidence to Kenyans about his ability to run the affairs of the state. And let me say this, that the president had an opportunity now to bring in professionals. The Gen Z, who are speaking on behalf of many of us, have said that do not appoint friends and political supporters to cabinet. Invest in professionals. I would have expected the president, for example, to try some kind of advertisement and ask people that are interested to express their interest in those positions, and have a team that maybe do some kind of vetting so that he ends up with a name or 2 or 3 for every docket, and then he can make a decision. So for him to quickly rush and bring back the same people, I felt that was really, you know, almost laughing at the Gen Z. Now, I'm of the opinion that not all the cabinet was a mess. There were quite a number of efficient people in that cabinet. But there were also some that, like I've talked about, Kithure Kindiki. Why? Because he is a face of anarchy. You know, when they say anarchy, he's the one who sent policemen and gave them live bullets to shoot unarmed demonstrators.
But those are very strong
words, and that's a fact.
Those are very strong accusations, Mheshimiwa, that you're making.
But
how do you prove that?
I mean, it's in public domain. Our youth were in the streets demonstrating. The young man who was shot outside Parliament, the one whose brains were splattered in the streets, is from Kathiani constituency. Is my constituent. This is a young man who worked in some butchery in one of the supermarkets. And if you watch all the clips, he was just there dancing, you know, excited about what they were doing. And at the end of the day, what happened? He was killed. What did he do to deserve to be killed? You look at all the photos, all evidence. He didn't have any weapons. He was carrying a bottle of water. He was holding his phone. He had a flag of Kenya. That was all that he had. Do you want to tell me that honestly, the person that is holding that docket, and this happens under his watch, that he's doing a good job? Last year we were in the streets as Azimio. We were also demonstrating against the high cost of living. 75 young people were killed. You know, and this is something that has gone on for the longest time in this country. Article 37 is very clear that as long as you are unarmed, you are allowed to peacefully picket and demonstrate. Now, when somebody is a CS and allows the killings, and you know, I'm saying allow because the CS himself also did speak very harshly against the demonstrations, which is against the Constitution. So I have serious issues with that. I've also got serious issues with Aden Duale, who was my colleague for a number of years and my schoolmate. But Aden Duale is the one who sent the military to the streets of Nairobi. And my question was, and Parliament were not even allowed to debate this matter because the Speaker was in a rush to make sure that this thing passes and the troops of, from the barracks would end up in the streets. And our question was, what is it you're sending the military to do in the streets? Because the military is supposed to defend the territorial authority of the country. Therefore, they are supposed to be dealing with external aggression. But you're sending them to the streets to deal with the demonstrators. Military do not have batons. Military do not have tear gas. Military do not have whips. Military only have guns. And not just those pistols, but those assault rifles and tankers.
All right.
How do you send them to the streets? So I have a problem with those two, but not the others. And I think the president also went back to the issue of picking friends. The Gen Z told him, don't put friends in your cabinet. How do you remove Mashogu as a minister for education? And he was a candidate for, UDA candidate for Governor Kisii, and replace him with his running mate in the last election?
All right.
I mean, you're dealing only with friends.
Good question, but I'll come back to you. But let me quickly just cross over to Churchill, also to weigh in on this particular list by the head of state. Then we get to hear also from Ondiek on whether this is meeting the concerns that Kenyans really expected that it would meet. Churchill, what would you describe the list by the president on the new cabinet to be as?
Yeah, I think, one, I'll be talking on my own behalf and on behalf of civil society actors that we had a meeting with yesterday. And the feeling was that the list contains, recycling, some of the former CSS is a mockery of the intelligence of the Kenyan people. And there's a lot of disappointment out there that the president seems to be taking Kenyans for a ride, for granted, that their views do not matter. In our view, appointing cabinet secretaries is implementing public policy. And our constitution, despite, of course, the president, I'm told, claims that he has the prerogative, we are beyond the days of the prerogative. The prerogative of the president to propose CSS and any public officer or state officers must also be seen within the context of the national values and principles of governance. He must be accountable to the Kenyan people. We expected him, even as he mentioned some of the names that were previously in the cabinet, to say that this is why I think these six deserve. And Kenyans are saying that even those that are in the business of recycling waste do not bring it back in the same form, in the same texture, in which the waste had been, consigned to the dustbin. And so we wanted the president, and we expected some innovativity, some ingenuity in ensuring that, the president appeals to the anger that has been ably voiced by Gen Zs, but these are concerns that have been with us right from the time when this cabinet was appointed. We expected the president to subject even those that he wanted to bring back to certain processes, and explain during the process of his announcement that having told you as much that my cabinet may have done better, that they may have let me down in one way or the other, I've subjected these six to a rigorous process of, performance appraisal and engage the public, because one of the national values and principles of governance under Article 10 is public participation. So we expect the president to be bound by that, not to tell us or appear to be the one that is wronged, the most wronged among the wronged, yet, he has completely ignored the public concerns that were raised. And this is going to impact even on the, their vetting, because we know Parliament, despite efforts that Mheshimiwa Mbui and his colleagues are making in Parliament, Parliament has lost the moral authority. We were even questioning yesterday whether the National Assembly, as currently constituted, has any moral authority, because in our view, when the youth of this country overran parliament, that parliament lost its authority, legitimacy, to preside over any vetting process. That parliament itself is very soon going to be subject to a lot of, recall processes. And I'm telling you that based on the conversations that we are having as civil society, it is going to be a mini elections. Even if we picked 2 per county, that's already in 90 and 90 plus. It's going to be a mini-able election. It's going to be a political bloodbath. But we are determined to do that because it is the only way we can send a message that under the new constitutional framework, Kenyans can no longer be at the mercy of an individual member of parliament for 5 years, irrespective of whether he performs according to the wishes of the people or not.
All right. Sorry to cut you short, Churchill. I want us also to listen to Kennedy Ondiek before we take a very short break and come back to just pick up on this conversation. Kennedy, this morning, how do you convince the country that this list of the head of state is working to meet the needs of the Kenyans in these very complex, moments that the country is currently in?
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to, first of all, say I respect a lot the panel that we have, but as I watched the documentary yesterday, the media, together with the human rights activists in Kenya and opposition, are going to lead this country astray. And I have to say it without fear that one, we have to know that we are a Republican state. A Republican state is a state where we have elections conducted after every 5 years for purposes of delegating our duties, of exercising our sovereign rights as provided under Article 1 of the Constitution. We all agree that Article 1 does give us powers, and such sovereign powers we can exercise directly or indirectly. And in promulgating the Constitution of Kenya 2010, we did exercise that direct power as to select or elect the governance structure that we need as a country. The main thing I want to add is that the delegated power lies upon such persons who are given that mandate by the people. And in direct exercise of that power, Kenyans went to election. And in the process, we came up with persons who got opportunity, like Honorable Mbui, to serve in National Assembly, His Excellency the President William Ruto to serve as the head of state. And I'm very sure that as we speak, all my colleagues, my friends here on the panel are aware that the Kenyan Constitution is not suspended as we speak. And we cannot have a constitution that is giving rights to persons under Article 37, and they don't remember that Article 152 does give powers to the president to nominate and take to parliament such persons who are supposed to be vetted by parliament and so approved by parliament,
but was that
and taken back to him.
Was that in dispute, Ondieki?
What I'm saying...
Is anyone disputing that power by the head of state?
I am saying that the Constitution of Kenya is not yet suspended. When a member of parliament comes to mourn on national TV, like if he doesn't know that the names are going to parliament for his vetting, it makes it, I don't know what they are doing, I don't know what he's saying, because the member of parliament should tell us that while we are going to do the vetting, because it's their duty, does it mean that parliament, as he says, is our parliament suspended? Is the constitutionalism in our constitution providing for the legislative power of parliament suspended? Does it mean that if some individuals broke into parliament and interfered with the sanctity of that house lost its meaning? Let us still understand, number one, when we look at Article 10, and they're talking about public participation, members of parliament here are the ones who have still failed to pass the Gerald Gay's bill on public participation. They have still not dealt with it. There's no format of how even the president should involve the public when it comes to public participation under Article 10, because the bill is still not yet out. The president has provided to the public the list of persons he is proposing to parliament to go and vet and be nominated and be elected, be appointed as ministers. We are already here shouting as if he has forced parliament to pass them. I want to make my point clear. We have to differentiate between leadership, politics, and governance. In promulgating our Constitution 2010, we designed and gave unto ourselves the design of governance. The Constitution does not recognize any forces coming from outside to tell the president how to act. The president will only act in respect of Article 10 to the extent that it does not jeopardize the national security, and in making a decision, he decides using the delegated power.
All right.
If someone wants to choose ministers...
Ondieki, allow me to just weigh in on what you're saying. We understand the powers that the head of state has, under the Constitution. But like I told you, the country is operating in very complex times. By dissolving the government, the president was trying to show goodwill in listening to the voice of the country and the times that we were operating in. I believe that was a move that was inspired by a president who was trying to portray himself as a listening president. So how would you justify that you would get to a point where in nominating his cabinet, then you would go back to the powers of being a president and do it in disconnect with what, some of even the panelists are raising, disconnecting himself from what the voices of the nation are presenting?
First of all, the president did not dissolve the cabinet. The president dismissed certain members of the cabinet because he's a member, he sits in the cabinet. He didn't dissolve cabinet. This is now the problem I have with the media and reporting. When we write and talk, how do we report? Did he dissolve the cabinet? He dismissed. And that is what the president said, I hereby dismiss the following, all members of cabinet except, meaning that he did not dissolve it. Something which has been dissolved is completely bundled out. Now, what actually are we supposed to talk about going forward? We as a country, the president is saying that the president needed to consult. The president came out and said we needed to talk. We needed a dialogue. They went back and said Gen Zs have refused a dialogue. The president himself availed himself on X. They ran away from X. They even wanted to shut off X simply because the president was going there. There's spirit of defiance in the country, and some people who don't want the country to be run have decided to hijack the process, and they have hijacked what Gen Zs. Gen Zs came up with a very good thing. Fine, finance bill had issues. They raised it. The president listened to it. The president deferred the bill. Then, in goodwill, the president again said, if there is problem with the cabinet members, I am going to dismiss some of them so that I can have a way to reflect. And in fact, he agreed on multi-sectoral approach. When he called for that multi-sectoral approach, they refused to talk. They have refused to talk. So what do they want the president to do? Because as we speak, you saw everyone, many parties, the president should not talk to anybody. So the president has called everyone on talks. Right. No one wants to go. Am I lying, my sister? Because we cannot put president on bondage. We cannot have a president who is under bondage. We have a president who has a duty. I'm one person here and you are three people. I may need more time because they will be saying the same thing.
Talking about time, allow us to take a short break. We have to pay the bills and then we come back and pick up from where we've left. Of course, a lot already being shared with regards to the move by the head of state. We take a very short break right here on Daybreak. We will be back with this conversation and more.
No, kila kindu. Thabki special.
Introducing Thabki in